one of our great teachers, Amirali Razaghi, who is a wonderful pianist and great piano teacher. And we want to talk about RCM today, Royal Conservatory of Music Examinations. Sure. I know some people have questions about it, everybody asks about it, so we want to find out more. So, Amirali, what is the RCM that everybody talks about?
Well, so as you mentioned, RCM stands for Royal Conservatory of Music. It's basically an establishment, a royal establishment music, one of the very famous music schools here in Canada and also in the US. So they have curriculum, as you can see over here. They've got different levels of pieces, technical requirements, some air training exercises. So basically, these are some collections of some pieces that RCM recommends for different levels, claiming that whoever thinks they can be qualified for passing RCM exams. Every of these levels should know these pieces and be able to perform them in an exam, whether online or in-person exam. So they will be able to get a certificate from the RCM from one of these levels, and that's pretty much how it works.
So a lot of people think that RCM is a kind of teaching method. That's really not what it is.
Yes. Very good question.
Right. It's just an examination system, whichever method you work with, you get to a certain level, you should qualify for those technical requirements, ear training requirements, and the certain pieces that you have to play.
So, okay, so as you said very well, because this is actually a topic that some people are a bit misunderstood about. As you said, this is not a method. As I said earlier, this is just a collection of pieces that RCM's put together for different levels, thinking that, okay, my level 4, for example, means that whoever can play these pieces that I'm recommending. So there are a collection of some pieces in the books, and also there is a list they've got outside of this book, so they have it around, so whoever can play those, that also counts as the requirement. Mm-hmm. So what I do is that obviously each student, I start my method, I teach them so they make progress, become a better and better pianist and musician day by day. So at some point, as one of the things that we cover in our class, we start doing RCM material as well, because there is no method in here. So at the same time, we're working on different methods with them, technicals, theory, piano method and everything. And at some point when I think they're qualified to start RCM, so we basically work on the repertoire and the etudes of RCM. And whenever they're ready, if they're willing to, they take the exam as well.
Okay, so that's wonderful. So let's say I bring my child and they've played music for, let's say, 3 years, and you say, okay, and they're interested in doing an RCM exam, so okay, we can prepare for level 4, let's say. Okay, so can they do the exam next day? Obviously not. There's a certain amount of time for preparation. What do they have to work on in this, let's say, a few months that they have to prepare?
Yes. Well, so obviously we need to work on different things to prepare for the exam. One is what they call the repertoire, which is a certain book. It's a separate book of a collection of some pieces from different eras. They've got Baroque list, they've got classical piece, romantic piece, and contemporary list. So what they do is they have to select one from each list, and then depending on the level, it's going to be a collection of 3 pieces, sometimes 4 pieces. The highest level is going to be like 5 to 6 pieces. So we start working on those because we'll certainly cover some pieces in the class on a regular basis. So we switch to RCM material instead. So the pieces that we work on, as usual, are going to be RCM pieces. And if someone really qualifies for that, meaning that a technical level is good enough to start one of these levels, they'll be able to play these pieces instead of the known pieces we do. And then the good thing is that because most of them are very famous pieces, a lot of them are the ones that we usually cover at the class, right? These are not some exotic pieces that come out of nowhere. Brilliant composers like Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, Chopin, like amazing piano composers, We have their pieces in here, so sometimes even we've covered them before, but then sometimes we look at them and then select some pieces based on their own taste, my taste, and some goals of, usually what I do is that I look at what we learn from those pieces as well, so it's like killing two birds with one stone, right?
So I actually I happen to have the violin syllabus because I'm a violin teacher.
Sure.
And just to explain it a little further, maybe I can look at, let's say, grade 6. So there's list A, list B, and list C. We have to choose one from each list. And I think in the beginning, usually like that, anyway, that's how it is for violin. They explain what they require for this grade. So let's say they require well-developed brush stroke, collé and spiccato strokes, technical pieces, positions, first position to fifth position, vibrato, and variety of dynamic levels, etc. So it's not enough to just play those pieces any old way. You have to choose them specifically. Like I'm assuming that you choose, let's say, this piece from this level has, let's say, good whatever.
Staccato, yes.
And from the list B, I choose something that's maybe fast, so that the examiner can see that you can play fast. Sure. Or the other level, you choose something maybe lyrical or something. Yeah. So variety is also important, and musicality. I say, what is musicality actually?
Okay, so if I want to explain it very briefly so everyone would understand, usually I say, the first time I want to explain this to my students, I say the way you express the piece, apart from what is written in the piece as instructions, and then some other stuff which aren't written necessarily, but then you have to follow in order to express properly. It's like, for example, when you have a text, you just read that text without any expression and everything. Or, for example, when there's a poem you want to read, or like a very, serious speech that you want to give people, at the same time you're reading from a text, but you try to express it in a very nice way with all the punctuations and everything, those with different tones, ups and downs, and that have better effect on the people. So this is basically musicality very briefly.
Okay, so that's something they are looking,
of course,
for.
Well, let's put it this way, in my opinion, this is how you play every piece of music. I mean, these have to be covered. It doesn't matter if it's RCM or something else. When you teach a piece of music to your student, they have to learn this stuff. At the end of the day, they're going to be able to do it themselves. It's not just the notes. They have to know that they have to do some set and other stuff in order to be able to perform a piece of music, not just hitting a bunch of keys and playing some notes. So yeah, well, at RCM, obviously, they care about this as well. If you look at the report cards they give you after the exam, they just mention all these stuff in terms of musicality, techniques, and everything. Apart from some very obvious ones in terms of tempo, correct notes, and things like that. But then at the same time, they obviously care about stylistic, which is the way you play any piece of music based on the era it's written. In Baroque era, it's a different kind of performance. In classic, it's a different kind. So obviously they look at that as well, and they take it very seriously because they assume they should be performed, not just play.
They get a report card. What is good for a student when they get a report card like that? Like, does it have, in your experience, is it good feedback for the students?
Of course.
Is it, how detailed is it? Does it help them improve?
It does. Well, obviously, it depends on the examiner as well. But let's put it this way. It's like presenting your student to another professor, another teacher, so you want to get feedback from them. That's always good. Imagine you have a pretty decent student who you think is good enough to be presented in front of other people and get some feedbacks that you may have not covered in your class. Sometimes you may have, but you like that to be heard from someone else, so they will know how serious that is, how they're seen by other people. And then what they do in the report card is that they mention any flaws or sometimes any good things that the student has done. right? So in terms of the more obvious things, in terms of tempo, notes and everything, to those more special things in terms of the stylistic. For example, I've seen a lot of report cards my students, the examiners written very well understanding of Baroque era, very well understanding of Romantic era, nice phrasing in this piece and everything, right? So so when the student sees that, they will understand how important these things are. And then honestly, sometimes they look at it from a different perspective. That I as a teacher look at it and say, "Wow, that's nice, right?" So let's pay attention to that a little bit more. And that's what they see in their report card. Everything is broken down, and then the students will see if they've lost any mark, why that is, and then if they've been taught so highly, again, what the reason is. So that's pretty much what they see in the report card.
Okay, so so as I understand it, I also feel the same way. Sometimes you've been emphasizing some, let's say, technical thing with the student over and over again, and it just sometimes takes a long time to be understood. But when they see it, that somebody else, when they see they're playing only once, can also notice that, okay, you have to work on this, then it kind of may sink in. Or sometimes there was a voice student, I saw the report card yesterday, they gave a lot of compliments on like developing good tone, good presence, good eye contact. I think when the student sees that as well, which obviously they've been working on the class on, it's very encouraging.
Of course.
Yeah.
Let me add something here. It's very interesting. You know, the first time they're taking the exam, as you know, they're always nervous and everything, especially
Students,
when it's when it's the first time playing in front of someone very important who's going to judge them, right? And then you keep telling them, you know, you're ready. So when you play that, why would they not give you good feedback and everything? But it's very hard for them to believe that. But when they go and play in front of that person and they see all those positive feedbacks, that because they've worked a lot on those points, other people have considered that, seen that, when they come back and say, okay, that was not that hard, you know what I mean, right? So whatever effort I put in that has been seen by other people, so there you go, right? I'm going the correct path. So this is also very good. It's not just the negative stuff that they have to work on, but also, as you said, when it's the positive stuff, say, okay, I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean, I know that some students may not be interested in this, and they just prefer to play their pieces at their own rate of learning and enjoy them and so on. But I do see that a lot of students who do the exam, because they have an end goal and they have to do the exam, there is particularly like a month before the exams, really some motivation builds up and their practice goes up, and when they see the improvement, oh my God, I can improve so fast, and that's exciting also. That's wonderful. Let's go back to the examination itself. So there's the repertoire, which are the pieces that they have to play, and they have to memorize too, which is also an extra challenge and sometimes very interesting.
Sure.
Because now they know a piece by heart, they can play it in front of people, and when they have to play it for concerts, just so much more confidence. What else is there?
Well, so they've got etudes.
What are etudes?
Well, okay, so etudes are also pieces of music, but with a more technical approach. So these are like some technical exercises, but not really just exercises, but they've been written in the shape of a piece of music. They can play in front of people. They're beautiful enough. They've got everything to be like a piece of music. The difference with a normal piece is that they've been written with some technical approach, emphasizing on some technical, sometimes one, sometimes more than that, technical things that because of that the piece has been written. So all these kind of pieces, they can be some etudes that are famous in the world of music as etudes. Sometimes they're just pieces, so the RCM takes them as some etudes.
I see.
Right. And then, so they're collected in another book, which are the etudes, so they have to play 2 of those as well. So they're not divided by the eras anymore, so it's just a bunch of
just focus
pieces.
on different techniques.
Exactly.
What else do they have to do? They have to know scales.
Yes, they have another book which is called Technical requirements. So different keys are covered in that technical requirement book. So at each level they have to play some of these keys, including the scales, chords, solid, broken. At some level of it's going to be some cadences as well. They've got arpeggios as well. And as it goes up, some more.
So then this is like really more knowing the keyboard, knowing your instrument,
Exactly.
being able to play in different keys.
All the fundamental basic things that every player, every instrument has to play.
So then different instruments, there are different technical requirements naturally depending on the instrument. Okay, what else? There's this
And then they have this
ear training.
Exactly.
What is ear training?
They got it covered in a book called 4-Star, right? So, well, in that they've got some ear training, which is distinguishing the interval by ear, and then the chords, harmony, and everything. At the same time, they have some sight reading, which means the ability of putting the sheet in front of you and be able to play that without practicing before. Yes, and then so they do that as well. Some rhythm performance, some playbacks, some clapbacks, and everything. Whatever that has to do with some ear training abilities, apart from the technique on the instrument.
So I think that's an aspect that if students are not doing RCM exams, can sometimes be overlooked,
Exactly.
right? Because I think that's really very important part of music training, which sometimes gets ignored.
Sure.
You have to also train the ear, because we focus, depending on the method that the students are working, focus on reading the music, learning the techniques. Sometimes students think that that's enough. Okay, now I can play. But you also have to recognize, you have to be able to pick up some things by ear, you have to know the building blocks of the music by hearing them. After all, it's a sound art. Do you recommend everyone to do RCM exams?
Because in my opinion there is a lot of benefits in doing that. I do for most of the students. For example, first of all, as you said earlier, that's a big motivation for them, knowing that you have to play some pieces, at the end of the day someone is going to watch you and grade you and everything. That's actually a goal, a midterm goal to look at. So, of course, in classes you cover technical requirements, you have the student play a lot of pieces and everything, but having them in all one collection and then having to present that in front of somebody gives them a midterm goal, which is amazing in my opinion. And then it's because it's pretty much going to be like a little concert, like seen by a master of music, so which is amazing at the same time. Apart from that, as you know, in the school curriculum, that's considered as credits, right? So if they pass level 7 and 8, that would be 1 credit for their high school when they graduate, because they have to get some extra credit apart from the school credentials, but at the same time they have to have like 1 art credit. So I'm always telling the students that when you've started music and you're at the level that with a little bit of extra effort you can pass the RCM exam, and then at the same time you have to have an art credit, so why not doing this instead of just starting another art from scratch, which is amazing. That's another thing for that. And then also, honestly, it's a very prestigious thing, to be honest. It's everywhere, people talk about that. I have some student when they come to me and say, my friend is at level 6, the other friend, you know what I mean? So
also, so a couple of other things as well. I've seen that, let's say people are applying to school, sometimes medical school, etc. It's important for medical schools, sometimes it seems that they show that they've been very serious about music as well. It shows a kind of level of commitment.
They have good IQs as well, These are like...
Because music is not that easy. Right?
No, of course, there you go. So when someone has passed those, especially high levels, they know that they've put a lot of effort, and at the same time they have enough IQ to do that.
Right.
And then it's going to be good for their resume.
Exactly.
Right? Not just for someone who wants to become a music teacher or just, take music as career, but then, as you said, if they're taking if they're going to medical school, that's going to be considered as some achievement,
Yeah.
which shows how intelligent they are, you know. But at the same time, imagine after years of taking music lessons, all of a sudden you decide to become a music teacher, either as a full-time job or as a part-time job. You want to show whoever's going to employ you as, well, I'm this good. I tell you what, RCM grade is going to be the first and foremost thing that they will look at.
They will ask.
You know what I mean? Right. So, well, that's also good for that as well.
All right, excellent. So, thank you very much.
No
I'm
worries,
for
thank you.
your time. If you have any more questions about RCM exams, let us know. We'll be happy to help you, and come to us. We'll set you up with great teachers. You'll take wonderful music lessons no matter what. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.